That early momentum is the hardest thing by far. So it's like you've got to get the rock moving. Once the rock is moving, it rolls. It's got its own inertia and it continues. So very good question. Difficult thing. Here's what we did, and I think it works well, and I recommend it to others all the time, and people find it helpful. So the idea is that you need to generate momentum. People don't want to bet on a losing horse. They need to believe that you're a winning horse. So a couple of things to do that early on. First of all, you better believe in what you're doing, right? You better do, in the world of startups, not just nonprofits, but in general, it's hard. Your chances are not good. You're probably not going to succeed, even if you have a great team, a great idea, funding and connections and all of the rest of it. The chances are just stacked against you. It's very difficult. So it's not actually really rational to launch a startup in terms of your expected value and outcome. You have to do it because you just love it and you can't not do it. If you believe that deeply and passionately about the cause or about your project or about your team or about supporting the particular customer that you're supporting, then you can overcome all sorts of hurdles, and people will hear it in your voice. They'll see it in the way that you sit and the way that you talk, and people love that passion and that excitement, and they will bet on that horse, because in this business, so much of it is just persistence, getting up every day and hearing no, 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 no at the beginning for a very long time, and just not giving up and insisting until you get the yes. So first of all is passion. Second of all is persistence. But then in terms of tactical stuff that you can do, here's a couple of good tricks. At the beginning, we set out and just said, I don't want anything from you. I just want a meeting and some advice. Is that okay? And so we just request meetings in order to get advice. So people knew we weren't asking for money. We weren't asking for free services. Just simply wanted to get their opinion on an idea. Then we would go and sell them on our passion, our excitement. It was a good idea, we felt, but we still had to work out some of the kinks. We explained it to them. In the first month or two of meetings, we got a lot of critique. So we had originally it was a for-profit. Originally there would be an investment fund with government money. We figured we'd get some stimulus money to put $50 million investment fund in and take equity. And the investors in their group would say, we thought that was going to drive more investment. And the investors were like, I don't want the government on my term sheet. That's going to scare away every investor in town. So we got a lot of critiques like that. And we said, okay, so we can't have government money on it. And we took it back and we talked about it as a team. And then we kept modifying our plan. So we just listened. We pitched our idea, and then our first question was, what's broken with this? What's wrong with it? Would you participate if it existed and was running? And we listened to everybody and wrote down their criticisms and integrated that into our plan. And then we made sure that every meeting we got the 5 new names to meet with. And from each of those meetings, 5 new names, and from each of those 5, until we literally were booked for 2 months in advance, 8 a.m. until 8 p.m., splitting up in 3 different sets of meetings running simultaneously. So passion, persistence, and then ask for input from the clients and from your market and integrate it into your plan. And then this is a very important tactical tip, is never leave a meeting without at least one yes, right? So even when you're asking for money, people will say no, and you say, oh, okay, would you be willing to sign a letter of recommendation? I've already written it. It's already on your letterhead, or has your logo on it and your name underneath it. Would you be willing to sign this? It just says, this is a good idea and a compelling team, and if it were running and operating, I would be interested in participating. Make it pretty vague and easy to sign, and start collecting letters from people that would be interested if you were funded, or if you had customers, or if you overcame that first hurdle. And then as you start to go to other meetings, you've suddenly got 20, 30, 40 letters of support, and people can see and feel the momentum that you're generating. And now people start to feel like you might be a winning horse. There's some good names in this list of signatures. I don't want to miss out on this. I recognize a couple of the top lawyers, top investors, maybe a university president here or there, a successful entrepreneur, et cetera. And now you're demonstrating real tangible traction. And then you have to identify and target the right first payer. And so for us at the time, we felt that if you think of a demand curve, supply and demand, you've got different customers in your market that have a different willingness to pay. And somebody on the left side of the demand curve is willing to pay a lot for your product or your service, much more than somebody far out on the right side where it's declined. So that's an individual person. You have to figure out who stands the most to gain from what I have to offer. That's your early adopter. Go and find them. They have the largest gap between their current reality and what they want out of the world, and you have to position yourself as closing that gap, either completely or partially. So that's your target. And we identified that early on for us as the government. We felt that we would get our first dollar from the government because the economy was collapsing and the government was desperate to create jobs, growth, or at least the perception that they were attempting to create jobs and growth. And what we were offering was potentially very high growth startups concentrated in one place so that you can demonstrate it, you can count it, you can measure it at a very low cost and low risk profile based on a proven model that is coming out of the MIT ecosystem largely, but also out of the broader Massachusetts ecosystem. So we addressed all of our letters to the Secretary for Economic Development in the state of Massachusetts, and then went to him bringing this complete package with all of these people are ready to go, the complete ecosystem, the universities, the lawyers, the investors, the entrepreneurs, the media, all of these groups have signed letters of support. And he was blown away, and he said, what do you need? And we said, we need, he said he wanted to help. What do you need? We said, $350,000. And he sighed and said, you know what I did this morning? I laid off firefighters and teachers. It's not a good time to write a big check on an unproven idea, but what's the minimum that I could offer that would be helpful? We said $100,000, and he said, I'll find you $100,000. And so we went back to the people that had signed the letters, and we said, the state that is bankrupt and struggling and laying off firefighters and teachers is willing to give us $100,000 based on your letter of support. And now those people said, I'll match it. Let me make some more phone calls. And suddenly, really within 48 hours, we had our full $350,000. So it's very tricky. It took us months to set up that first meeting. It was a lot of planning, a lot of strategizing, and it's about creating incremental momentum and then using escalation of commitment. So if you can't get a yes on a letter of support, ask for 5 introductions. They won't give you introductions. At least ask them, is it okay if I follow up again in a week or two with some updates? You want to never leave that room without a yes. You want to get them invested in what you're doing and engaged in some way, and then follow back up with them in 2 weeks with positive news and momentum, and you'll start to see people engaging in sequence, and pretty soon the momentum is overwhelming and people are calling you to get involved. So very difficult, but if you're persistent and passionate, you'll get there.